Everyone, we are so happy to see you here, and thanks for having pretty much a full house. My name is Jennifer Lenhart, and I am the Global Cities Lead for WWF. But before we get started, we're actually going to kick off with a video from one of our all-time city favorites.
Dear delegates, fellow city leaders, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Sweden and the city of Malmö. My name is Katrin Stjernfeldt-Jamme, and as the mayor of Malmö, I'm proud to represent the first city ever to be pronounced winner in WWF's One Planet City Challenge, the challenge where cities are invited to inspire the world with ambitious local climate action. The One Planet City Challenge is now celebrating its 10th anniversary, and today this challenge to cities is more relevant than ever. With the whole world striving towards finding good solutions to tackle climate change, cities have become essential actors in carrying out this important task. This includes being a part of the race to zero and doing what science demands to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And I encourage other cities to join the One Planet City Challenge, just like us, to receive guidance on target setting in line with the Paris Agreement and compete in developing the most ambitious and integrated climate action plans. In our city, we see new climate-smart districts emerging and older areas being refurbished with new sustainable technologies. We have high ambitions for sustainable and healthy food and for the use of renewable technology, but we all need to aim higher and to increase the pace of change. We need to work more closely together, locally as well as globally. And as first Vice President of ICLEI, Local Government of Sustainable Development, let me therefore also welcome you to the upcoming World Congress in May next year. Here you will have a great opportunity to see our work and exchange experiences among global, regional and local leaders, and also to celebrate the latest champion cities in One Planet City Challenge. I hope to see you all here.
Excellent. So for those of you who did not hear, that is the mayor of Malmö in the south of Sweden, our very first One Planet City Challenge winner. So we wanted to give a shout out to her because this year we are celebrating 10 years of our One Planet City Challenge. And I'm very proud that we have 2 and hopefully soon 3 OPCC or One Planet City Challenge city leaders with us. So I'm just going to start with a very brief introduction, and then I actually have some slides, even though I told our wonderful speakers not to take slides, but to give some context for especially our audience to join in. Well, welcome, a good Mexican entrance. We do like that. So please join us, and you have all the rights and excuses here as you're winning an award today as well. So, okay, well, I was just doing an introduction, so you came right on time, actually. So we have from, oh, thank you, Seth. I mean, I love when your speakers are also supporting you along the way here. Okay, so I'm just going to start to the left, all the way on the far left. We have Lord Mayor Kate Nicholl from Belfast, Ireland. And next to her, we have the Mayor of Renca in Chile, Claudio Castro Salas. And then in the middle of here, we have Agat, and I'm going to have to not say your name very well, but it's Cavacololi. I don't. All right, I'm going to call her Agat from now on. And then we have Seth Schultz, the CEO of Resilient Shift. And finally, we have Mario Ramon Silva Rodriguez, who is the director of the Institute for Planning and Development at the metropolitan area of Guadalajara in Mexico. And I actually forgot to say Agat's title, and she is actually the head of advocacy at the city network C40. So we're going to start. Now, where did I do with my clicker here? Moving my papers. Anyways. All right. We're going to start with a small presentation. So if we could go over to those slides. And then we'll head straight into the speakers. So most of you who work with cities or are interested in cities have probably seen these numbers. I won't go into too deep detail, but cities are home to 55% of our population. They are responsible for 70% of our carbon emissions, as well as 75% of natural resource consumption, and they are instrumental if we are going to adapt to the climate crisis. This has been WWF's response, and we're very happy to be celebrating 10 years of the One Planet City Challenge this year. We've had over 700 cities join us in this challenge, including over 280 cities that joined us in 2021. So this is our greatest and strongest year thus far. In the last few years, we've actually developed some information in terms of we don't just reward and celebrate cities for what they're doing, but we also help them move towards the Paris Agreement and the 1.5 degree target. So we have an assessment framework where we take the data that they submit on the joint CDP ICLE platform, the data that aligns with the Global Covenant of Mayors in terms of what is requested for cities' data, and then we see, okay, with this data that cities have publicly reported, how closely are they aligned to the Paris Agreement? And so then we can see how closely they are. And I have some very exciting news to share with you that our method has been both recognized by the Science Based Targets Network as well as the Cities Race to Zero. And we have seen between the last One Planet City Challenge 2 years ago and this year a doubling of cities that are aligned to 1.5. Now, it's not enough. But we are certainly seeing that there is a forward motion, and we're here to help cities get there. So just to give you a little bit more background on the One Planet City Challenge, we see that this is a way where we can really recognize and inspire other city leaders to learn from their peers. We can provide guidance and feedback on those Paris Agreement goals. And also a big part of the work that we do is on citizen engagement. So in addition to celebrating 10 years of the One Planet City Challenge, I'm very happy to say here today that we are formally launching the Transforming Cities Together public engagement guide, which was funded and supported by the British Council. And this is not only in English, it is in English right now, but it will be translated into Spanish, as well as Bahasa in Indonesia. So please take note of this. And now it reminds me, I forgot to say at the very beginning, if you are watching us on Zoom, we do have Spanish translation. I'm sorry, the jumble here got me a little bit mixed up on that one. But just to tell you a little bit about this public engagement guide, it's sort of the tips and tricks for city leaders how to really build that public engagement. So how to define your goals and expectations, how to be transparent, inclusive, show your commitment to this topic, and also to trust your citizens as part of the solution story. We started this public engagement journey a few years ago in something we call We Love Cities, and the real importance here is, you have to love where you live. If you don't love where you live, you're not going to want to be part of that journey of sustainability. So this is a project that we run between local authorities as well as their citizens to envision and create a more sustainable city. We've seen it both online. We've had a strong online presence with more than 1.2 million votes for cities that they think are the most sustainable or the most loved, but also actions on the ground, as you can see, tree planting with a mayor in the Philippines here. Finally, I'm kind of wrapping up here, but we have been putting quite a lot of work into urban nature-based solutions most recently, and we think that this is really important because, cities need to be places that enable all people to thrive and flourish while respecting the ecological limits of our one and only planet. So this is just as much about equity when it comes to cities as it is about access to nature. So I encourage you to check out our new website. We also have 3 policy papers, one on urban nature-based solutions, one on urban food systems, and a broader policy paper on helping cities align to the 1.5 goal. I'm just shouting out this very, very briefly that it's also about the youth. Our youth in Africa actually have put together an Urban African Youth Climate Change Manifesto. So we're trying to see, how can we, especially from WWF's perspective, encourage and inspire young people to be part of this solution. This is in Africa, but we're very much encouraging other parts of the world to also be excited and engaged on this. So I think that is my final slide, which allows me to go back to our speakers. And you don't have to listen more to me. Let's listen to them because they're far more interesting. So Agathe, we're going to start with you. So our theme here today is exploring overlooked opportunities to align cities to 1.5. Can you briefly provide an update from the city's Race to Zero and offer some innovative examples with your work at C40, how cities are meeting these very ambitious goals? The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. This is working? You can hear me fine? Brilliant. Thank you very much for the invitation to the Panda Hub, and a sincere congratulations on the 10-year anniversary of the OPCC, as well as to the 3 cities that are participating in this panel and are participating in the OPCC challenge and demonstrating their leadership. So I'm here to speak about the city's Race to Zero, which at this point of COP you are probably already familiar with. But it's basically the city's track of the Race to Zero. It was put together by a coalition of partners, including WWF, C40, ECLAY, the Global Covenant of Mayors, WRI, and UCLG, as well as lots of local and regional networks that have helped us champion the campaign around the world. We ran it for over a year in the lead up to COP26. And we came to COP with over 1,049 cities committed to Race to Zero. That means that's over 1,000 cities around the world committed at the highest political level in their city or government to set themselves on a trajectory to 1.5. That's roughly speaking, depending where you are in the world, halving your emissions by 2030 and reaching net zero by 2050 at the latest. Collectively, these 1,049 cities represent 722 million people, and their emission reduction potential is 1.5 gigatons of CO2 equivalent. Now that's a lot of jargon, but what this means is that it's the equivalent of the 4th or the 5th largest economy in the world, cutting its emissions in half by 2030 and reaching net zero in 2050. So it's a massive contribution to the implementation of the Paris Agreement. And Jennifer, you've asked me some of the innovative ways that cities will be delivering on that really ambitious commitment. And there the numbers speak for themselves. As part of the campaign, we have asked every city that joined to tell us how they intend to reach these objectives and to inform and share with us which actions they're going to take. Overwhelmingly, cities have committed to 3 top sectors in terms of actions. That's creating resilient and sustainable energy systems, delivering zero carbon buildings, and improving and making food systems more sustainable and less wasteful. I have some specific examples that I would like to invite you to explore further if you're interested in each of these sectors, because maybe some of you live in those cities, or some of you may be interested in a similar action implemented in your cities. On food, for example, many of you will have heard about the Earthshot Prize delivered in London this year by the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. The city of Milan actually won on reducing waste with their Food Hubs program, which over 1 year has saved food waste from supermarkets and company canteens and have re-delivered that food to people in need and communities in need across the city. That's over 260,000 meals that have been saved and delivered in Milan. On energy, the city of Buenos Aires is going to be installing renewable energy systems and public monitoring on a lot of high-emitting buildings across the cities. And by 2025, they'll be introducing various incentives for solar energy on large buildings across the city. Finally, on buildings, the city of Tshwane in South Africa is a really fantastic example. They have revised their 2012 building policies and regulations to ensure that all new buildings are net zero by 2030. And by 2050, they're hoping to introduce new policies and regulations so that all buildings are net zero by 2050. So that's just a few of the examples that have really come through in the race to zero in terms of action commitments. Interestingly, some really innovative and maybe more unexpected actions are also shining through. For example, we're seeing a lot of cities commit to divesting and reinvesting the assets under their management to move away from fossil fuel investments. Two pioneers of that work are London and New York, for example. London has already divested 90% of their fossil fuel investments, and New York in 2021 has voted to divest its city employees and city teacher retirement funds as well. Altogether, that's $4 billion taken away from fossil fuel investment only through that action. And lastly, I'll mention clean construction because that's going to be a topic discussed tomorrow. Tomorrow is the Cities, Regions and Built Environment Day. There's going to be really fascinating panels in the meeting room 4, doing a little bit of advertising here. But we'll be exploring how cities, with their own regulatory as well as their purchasing powers, can support the decarbonization of the whole life cycle of a building, including all embodied emissions from materials and construction. And just to conclude, I think this really shows us that cities are an integral part of the Paris implementation ecosystem, and hopefully they're no longer overlooked.
Amazing. Amazing as always. Right on time, inspirational, contextual, and just demonstrating why cities are really the place to look if we were going to meet and exceed those Paris Agreement targets. Claudio, over to you. So today, might I say, thank you for shouting out that tomorrow is Cities in the Built Environment Day, and today is Transport Day, and I know personally that a lot of these city leaders are also leading on some of those transport activities, so maybe they'll bring that up. But today we are, from WWF, officially launching this new public engagement guide for city leaders, and we do recognize the importance of working with citizens to align our cities to the Paris Agreement. From your perspective and your engagement, can you share some of the activities that you and your team have been involved in Renca to harness public support and buy-in for local climate actions, as well as other actions for more equitable and sustainable cities? The floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here in this panel. And to let you know something about Renca. Renca is one of Santiago's 36 municipalities. We don't have one city authority in Santiago. Santiago is a city of 7 million people. Renca is a borough, one of these 36 boroughs, of 160,000 inhabitants. We are in the northwest area of the city. And Santiago is a very unequal city regarding socioeconomic aspects, but also related to environment. We are in a kind of a heat island, and we receive all the pollution caused in the rest of the city area in our borough. And also we have the only power plant of the city in Renca. So we have a lot of stress related to environment. And we are also a poor municipality. So when I started being a mayor 4 years ago, the main problem for our neighbors, besides security, for example, it was the waste on the streets. And Jennifer, you said something that I think is crucial here. You said people has to love where they live. And it's very difficult to love where you live when you have waste around the corner, right? And that is the reality of sadly, many cities in Chile, in South America, and probably in the rest of the world also. So we had to build a strong coalition and bring up this public support to a very aggressive agenda related to climate change. And we started by picking up the waste from the street and spending a lot of money to do that. But also we started with a big educational campaign in all the public schools and kindergartens in Renca. And I would say that that was our first movement. At the same time that we were having the waste picked up on the streets, we had this kids coalition pushing us to go further and further. Now we have a lot of initiatives regarding energy efficiency, regarding solutions based in nature. We have the Renca Hills in our part of the city, which we are very committed to convert in a metropolitan park, in a green land, in this more polluted area of the city. And a lot of people has gone there and planted their own trees. We are also working on air quality and sustainable mobility. But I would say that for us it's been very important now, 4 years later, to measure. And I think that that's where Race to Zero is so important for us, having this monitoring system. And we joined Race to Zero a couple of months ago. And now we are also with WWF launching the first Alliance for Climate Action in Chile. We are from Renca championing that alliance. And I hope that that will help us to bring together not only local governments, but also the private sector. In Renca, for example, I said that we have a lot of initiatives in energy consumption from the public sector, but the 92% of the consumption of energy in Renca is up to the private sector. So we have to engage them, they have to be committed with us, and I think that ACA will help us to do so. And finally, we are also in Chile in a very special moment, because we are building our new constitution, and we hope and we are pushing for that from the local governments, from the NGO, from the civic organization. We are pushing for a constitution that will allow a more deep decentralization. Chile is a very centralized country, and when that happens, the power in the local, not only local governments, but also the power close to the people is very difficult to have, and then you have more inequality, so we want to address that. But that will also help us to address our climate change commitments. So we really hope that, again, with this ACA, with all these municipalities working together to push further, we will have also an eco-constitution in Chile that will facilitate the work of the central government, but also the local communities to achieve the goals that we're committed to. So again, for us, participate here is very important. We're learning a lot. We will bring a lot of good and new ideas to Chile. And so thanks again for the invitation.
No, thank you. I mean, familiar with a lot of the work that you're doing. It is very inspiring. I think that you're bringing both sustainability and equity quite central. Love to hear the work that you're doing with kids and waste management. I think I was on a panel earlier today that was about cities, nature, and play. So I think that links a lot to some of these topics, that if we don't get young people excited about these topics, especially after COVID, especially with the climate crisis, I mean, this is their world, and we need to, empower them and motivate them. So thank you so much for your work, Mayor. Always an inspiration. And congratulations on the launch of the Alliance for Climate Action. I know we have another Alliance member here too, so we'll get to that as well. Kate, Mayor Kate, I know you told me, just call me Kate, so I will do that. I'd like to mention that in addition to the report that we launched today, we recently had a public engagement workshop with quite a few different city leaders that were joining, including some colleagues of yours in Belfast. So thank you for that. And likewise, we will soon host a similar workshop on public engagement in Spanish, focused and a better time zone for our participants in Latin America. So, stay tuned when that comes. In addition to public engagement, we've also been working on some activities to really help cities get towards that 1.5 degree mark. We know how difficult it is, and we know it really takes an all hands on deck approach. It takes buildings, it takes divestment, as Agat said. It also takes work on urban food systems, including some work on diets, as well as on urban nature, including the role of urban nature to help cool our cities. So, Mayor Nicol, looking at the Belfast Climate Plan, which I did actually explore a little bit before coming here, it appears quite comprehensive, including on a lot of these different areas. Can you briefly describe some of Belfast's efforts to address citizen behavior, including on food and diets, as well as to plant 1 million trees, which is quite impressive, by 2035, And on the latter, the tree planting initiative, how does this connect to some of your efforts to reduce the city's pollution and noise and or greenhouse gas emissions from buildings? So kind of a holistic approach to the work that you're doing. The floor is yours.
I think that's, oh, there we go. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Delighted to be here. And we are so delighted to be part of the various networks. The Race to Zero is wonderful. And just to give you a little bit of context, Belfast is obviously the capital of Northern Ireland. And in Northern Ireland, we are known for having fairly dysfunctional politics. And this has really been an issue when it comes to climate. For a long time, just trying to convince other politicians that climate change was a thing was our biggest issue. We're the only region in the United Kingdom that doesn't have specific legislation for that region. Currently do have 2 bills going through the Assembly, but it's not actually in place yet. And as a city, that lack of strategic direction, that investment and the specific local outcomes is a massive barrier to us. But in 2019, we had a crop of new politicians come in. There are 8 political parties which are represented on Belfast City Council. And there was a lot of dynamism that came in. And from a political context which had traditionally been quite tribal, quite negative, there were these younger politicians who came in who wanted to talk about thematic issues, and environment was right up at the top. So we declared a climate emergency. From that, we then pushed for a funded climate unit. And really the work that has rolled out since then has been pretty impressive, and we're very motivated to keep going. So partnership has been at the key, and we partner with Queen's University in Belfast in co-chairing our climate commission. We developed our resilience strategy, which is our climate action plan, and we've developed a roadmap to net zero by 2050. Within that, we have a number of different key projects, and the 1 Million Trees project is a great one. It's great because it's primarily a tree planting initiative, but it also really captures the imagination. It's become this wonderful tool for engaging people who are maybe not climate activists. I think that, okay, there we go. Yeah, so it's this wonderful tool for engaging climate activists, people who are not climate activists, but who care about nature and woodlands. We've used it to really engage with communities. We have an online platform where you can drop a pin in the city where you'd like to see more trees. We have nurseries. We're partnering with different organizations, getting private sponsorship through it. It's just been this really great initiative that has really spoken to the imagination. And as a city, we're very conscious that we know the science, we know the solutions. The real issue is how you get people to engage and to buy in to the change that we need to make. And by personalizing it, we really feel we're making a difference. So we're doing a number of different projects within that. We have, as I said, we have a climate commissioner in Belfast City Council. This is really good because it means that we're looking at how we can embed the changes we need to make in every single department. We know from our Northern Ireland Assembly there's some really good work happening, but the different departments operate in a silo. By having a climate commissioner that's overseeing what's happening in the council as a whole, it means that we're able to take that really holistic action, and that's so necessary. So yeah, we're doing a number of different things. We have a sustainability board. What you should probably know about Belfast City Council is our powers are limited. We don't have power over transport or housing, but because it's a small city, we have very good relationships with the providers of that, and we're working with them. We have community planning powers, so we work with grassroots organizations to roll out a number of different issues, and we work very closely with I mentioned the university, but anchor institutions in the city as well. So partnership is essential for making the changes that we need to by 2050. From our roadmap, we know that industry, housing, and transport are the key areas to reduce carbon emissions. Housing is a great opportunity for us because the housing executive, Northern Ireland Housing Executive, has a stock of 85,000 houses. That's the highest in Europe. People still use a lot of oil in Northern Ireland, so there are a lot of opportunities for us to make significant changes, and we're well on the way, but our barriers at the moment still are that lack of leadership from the Assembly, and while we're trying to plug it from Council, it's not quite enough.
Excellent. Very inspiring. I love everything you said. Tree planting. I mean, it's tangible. Pointing a pin, this is where we want a tree, connecting different groups that you might not have expected to be engaged with. The challenge of working in silos. Who here hasn't had that challenge in a local city? I mean, we hear that comment very, very common. So amazing work you're doing. I love that young people are getting involved, the push for the climate emergency, and everything you had. And certainly with building stock, I mean, this is a struggle everywhere. So from our side and probably from the other city networks, how can we help? How can we either, mobilize and push this as an agenda that should be taken up also by higher levels of government, or connect capacity? These are things that we're really excited about. So thank you so much. Now, to the man I think I've seen most at this COP, we have sat next to each other at least at 4 or 5 different sessions, panels, dinners. Mario. Yes, yeah. And we can also share a microphone if it's needed. I mean, we're good friends by now. Well, just while you're fixing that, I'm just going to do a brief intro. We are very happy to have both Belfast and Renka as new participants in the 2021 One Planet City Challenge. So thank you so much for joining, alongside 280 other global cities. And we are very, very happy to have the return of the metropolitan area of Guadalajara, who has joined us for several years in the One Planet City Challenge with increasingly ambitious climate data. So that's also a very important key there. Noting that a key theme of our event is about the importance of collaboration for stronger climate action, I would also like to highlight that Guadalajara's engagement also in WWF-supported Alliances for Climate Action, as well as C40's work to align cities to 1.5 through the Deadline 2020 approach, and to congratulate your city, which I believe it's getting awarded today, for the UN Climate Action Award. This is a big deal among 10 other global winners. So huge congratulations to you. So, Director Silva, can you share with us how important collaboration has been to your city, locally, regionally, globally, to learn and share some of your efforts to increase your city's climate ambitions?
Thank you, and hello everyone. And yes, well, I think the important question in this panel could be, how can we include the regional and the metropolitan perspective in the fight against the climate crisis? Because we know a lot of efforts from cities. Doesn't matter what kind of size that cities has. And in our case, also the city of Paris and the city of Samsø in Denmark, both are winners also for this award, has their own climate action plan. But I think we have to ask how we can identify ways to create regional and metropolitan connections, because we need work together as neighbors, as a community. And so that's the reason why we received this award, not just because we have a plan. The great effort was have this plan in a metropolitan perspective with 9 mayors and 1 governor and 1 citizen metropolitan council and more than 1,000 technicians and people from different levels of governments in order to identify goals, strategies, activities, and one specific main goal to be a carbon neutral metropolis in 2050. So that's the reason why we won this award. And I think it's not important have just papers or plans. It's necessary to taking action. And this is the other important reason that we are here, because we are working on different strategies and activities, particularly in transportation. So happy Transport Day. And more on that, transportation, waste management, circular economy, water supplies, and other kind of issues in the climate agenda are important, but the big question is how we can finance these activities in the local level. So in terms of COP26, I think this is one of the most complicated agreements, because here we are cities. Race to Zero is for cities, because we recognize that in that level is more useful, fast to apply this climate ambition. So we expect a lot of the national and federal governments in this COP26, because we don't have time to discuss in another COP how we can finance the actions and the solutions. So I think my colleagues here from other cities are a good examples and demonstrate how in local level we can apply these alternatives and solutions. Well, back to our story. Well, the metropolitan area of Guadalajara is the second largest city in Mexico. We have more than 5.2 million people living there. We also well known as the capital of the tequila and mariachi music and all the Mexican stuff that represent our country outside of Mexico. But we have a lot of problems, particularly with hydrologic resilience, or in terms of hydrological resilience. Also, waste management is a big issue for us. And during the last 15 years, we are working hard on sustainable transportation, focused on non-motorized mobility and also massive transit systems for the city and the metropolis. And that's the reason why we developed this Metropolitan Climate Action Plan, because we have the objective to be in 2050 or achieve this goal, consolidate the metropolitan area of Guadalajara, made up of these 9 municipalities, as a carbon neutral, resilient, and inclusive metropolis by 2050. It's important to mention that we are the first metropolis that be committed with this goal as countries or other nations in the world, in this scale I mean, through coordinated, progressive, innovative, transformational, and effective metropolitan climate action with a long-term vision and aligned with the Paris Agreement to limit global warming to 1.5 grades. So for us, Race to Zero is the best way to achieve that, to accomplish our main objective. And for us it's important, this award, but it's more important to share some results. We closed one landfill waste area last November 1st, the biggest landfill in our metropolis. And now we have a lot of pressure with our municipalities to find circular economic ways to make the things different than we are doing before. Also, we have the first electric bus line in, well, the biggest fleet in the country, with 38 electric buses operating now, driving by women. This is our special program for workers, for women drivers. So this is important because equality and the inclusive approach in the public policies of climate change is also important. So we have this electric fleet, and also we increase the capacity of our bicycle sharing system in the metropolis, more than 10% during the last year. And well, this is some examples that how it's not just enough with the planning. We also pass to taking action. So my last message will be, not in past, in future, because I was thinking in all the things that I am doing during the last year. It's not important, or it doesn't matter, again, the size of the city, of the regions, how many people living in a community. It's important taking actions. It's not important if the level is in your own house, or in your county, or your city council, or your small business in your town. The important thing is taking action. So that's my final message, and thank you to invite me, and thank you to see you again.
And we're always sitting next to each other. We planned this. I said, Mario, please come a little late. Run in here and we can do a quick chair swap. No, we didn't actually do that, but it worked well. Thank you. And I am so inspired that you've all kept on time. So I'm going to also remind our audience to think on some questions, because if we have the time, which hopefully we will, we would like to throw it back to you. So thank you to our three city leaders for their brilliant remarks, the challenges, but also a lot of the ambition and action that is coming out of your fantastic cities. So now, and we're also, again, thank you for joining the One Planet City Challenge. We're very happy, and we encourage all other cities to join us until December, actually. So it's still open for your engagement. Now, knowing what's at stake, when we listen to the climate scientists, we hear urgency, urgency, urgency. That being said, we also know that there is a lack of funding. Sometimes it's difficult to enact policies at the local level. So, that all of these issues get in our way. But assuming that those were not there, in an ideal world where you were not constrained by financial resources or legal mandates, what would be your 1 to 3 key actions that you would implement now? So we'll use a present tense verb right here. Now, today, yesterday maybe even, to really scale up ambition in your city. And if that was actually, so going from your dream to a reality, what kind of financial resources do you need? What kind of legal mandates do you need? How can we, from the city network side of it or the NGO side of it, help to mobilize you to support some of the visions that you have? So I think we're going to do ladies first on this one, and over to you.
What a question. Like, if you could do anything and only choose 3. I have a list like this. One of the things I didn't say is, as Mayor of Belfast, I'm really interested in that communication and how we get people to buy in. I think sometimes the language is totally inaccessible, and the only people who are listening are people who already have bought in. How you engage with working class communities, how you make it personal and relevant. So every month I've been doing a Lord Mayor's Environmental Challenge. And I've been doing it in partnership with an organization and encouraging the public to do it too. So whether it's cycling to work, attempting to go plastic free, which is virtually impossible, but I tried as hard as I could in July, raising the profile of fast fashion, different things that we can do in our own lives. And it's not to put the responsibility on the individual, but it's to keep it on the agenda and for us to use that then to lobby the Northern Ireland Assembly. So the reason why I said that was I started cycling. I haven't been on a bike since I was about 10 years old. I didn't have much natural aptitude then. I still don't really. But I've been embraced by the cycling community in Northern Ireland, and now I have to keep cycling. If I got all the money available and could do what I wanted right away, cycling infrastructure in our city is atrocious. I want to see cyclable, walkable, connected ways through the city that link green spaces together and are diverse and vibrant, and it's so necessary and so completely achievable. Number 1. Number 2, I mentioned housing. 43% of emissions come from domestic settings in Northern Ireland. Retrofit, get that done. The third one, I suppose, is a lot of people in Northern Ireland have grown up with not much hope and not much pride in where they live. This is a city that has gone through extraordinarily difficult times. It's a post-conflict city. We're still dealing with really difficult legacy issues. Brexit has not helped us, and we're struggling with a number of things right now. There is There is extraordinary work happening in Northern Ireland. Belfast is the best city in the world. It is the best. The people are the best. But the confidence in people who live in the city does not match the work that's being done. If I could do anything, I would harness the opportunity that all of this offers us. We know that there's urgency. We know that we have things that we have to do, and we know what we need to do. If I could harness that energy and show people that there's opportunity and create new jobs, and with that pride, then that would help so much. So cycling infrastructure, housing retrofit, and bringing that hope and aspiration back, especially to young people who have either grown up thinking that there's no hope or the only way they achieve their ambition is by leaving. But if we could use those green opportunities to show them that there is hope and opportunity in the city, we'd be flying.
Oh my God, I love that answer, every part of it. And I think for me, it's always, let's start with cycling. If we think on cycling, we build cities for people and nature. And then we connect them and we build that pride. So that would have been my answer, but I think you went so much further with everything else that you added. Hard act to follow, but Claudio, I also know you're doing some great things with Renke. What would be your answer?
Well, this is a very good dream, right? What would you do if you have anything to do that? I would also transform the city. I like a lot this idea of the city of 15 minutes, to bring opportunities and services for people. We have been working on that. That is very complex from the administrative perspective and all the relation with the regional government and the central government. It's related to mobility also. Renke is the area of the city where more people use bicycles, but where we have less bike lanes. So I could really use all that money and also the administrative power to bring these opportunities and build these sub centers in the city. I would also, and I think that this is also related to the pride of living, loving where you live. I would also transform definitely the Renka Hills in this metropolitan park. And I would make the best park ever there, not only as a green land for the city, but also as a quality place where you can enjoy nature in the middle of the city and be connected also with that. And finally, I think that a good symbol is to completely transform our power plant, which nowadays functions with, it works with the oil and gas. But I would imagine that infrastructure working with, I don't know, green hydrogen and be on the cutting edge of the climate action. So I would say those three dreams.
Also love your dreams. I think we're all dreaming kind of in a similar space. The clouds up here must be heavy. And I also personally know that you're doing some very exciting things on cycling and bringing in new actors to be part of that solution. So fantastic, fantastic work. We started this with a short video from the mayor of Malmö. I used to work for the city of Malmö, and they actually transitioned one of their energy plants, which led to a big green retrofit. So we can perhaps take that afterwards. It's an exciting project. So those are some big dreams to fill. Mario, you've done some pretty ambitious work. What would be your top three?
Well, in our case, isn't a dream. It's an obligation because we have this plan that this cup is for you. Let me to give you as a gift. So I would like to share with the audience three goals that we have to achieve in 2030, not 2050. So less time to achieve that. The first one is reduce the amount of solid waste disposed of in landfills in the metropolis to achieve 30% of organic and inorganic waste formally recovered. Increase by 42% the number of bicycle lines and pedestrian walkways. And finally, the most complicated because my national government is not help us to achieve that, 38% of the electrical energy generation matrix consumed in the metropolis comes from clean sources. This is, to me, my dream, because it not depend from the metropolitan, state, or municipal level. So this is my top 3.
I love that you have both dreams and an action plan. So there we go. It's kind of the dream, you wake up and here it is. So fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. I'm so inspired by all of your cities. This is for me. Why am I giving it back to you? Okay, so Seth, you are always an inspiration. So we gave you the really tough job of kind of being the final speaker and looking at this session on exploring overlooked opportunities and thinking outside of the box a little. You've worked in the cities and climate change arena for many years, co-chairing the IPC Cities work and the climate change conference, leading our OPCC expert jury. So for the One Planet City Challenge, we have an expert jury where they really assess some of these very strong cities. And he is the key man there, so definitely knows a lot about cities. And you are currently the CEO of Resilience Shift. And we haven't talked that much about resilience, but it's certainly very much linked to the 1.5 goal, to the adaptation, and to building better and more quality of life cities. So over to you, in your experience and also listening to these brilliant city leaders, how would you reflect on some of the overlooked opportunities to help cities get to 1.5 in a resilient, dynamic way?
Fantastic question. But first, again, thanks for having me here, and very inspiring panel. Always great to be with city leaders and mayors and city networks. But also congratulations to WWF for, this is a fantastically balanced panel. Lots of diversity, equal gender balance. Kudos to you for doing that. I really appreciated it, noticed it immediately. But it's fantastic to hear the ambition, both in terms of dreams and reality of what cities are doing on the ground at 1.5. Meeting the 1.5 challenge is a very real and urgent issue, and one that needs optimism, pragmatism, and implementation. And it's phenomenal to hear cities continually moving that forward, but also thinking really holistically about this. This is not just an issue about spreadsheets. And we talk about mitigation versus resilience. Oftentimes I kind of refer to it as a exercise in a spreadsheet versus resilience, which is more of a conversation around like a family meal. It's community based, it's relationship building. And 21st century leadership, make no mistake about it, is partnership. And I think primarily where cities have been leading and are continuing to lead is by being catalytic entities for partnership, both within your communities but also internationally. Because we need emblems of hope and progress about what is possible, how do we overcome the challenges, and the diversity of the challenges that you all talked about, yet the very practical things that you're doing to move it forward is really exciting. In terms of missed opportunities, I don't know if I would say missed, because I think there's a lot of very smart work that's been presented already. But maybe just touch on a few things that I've heard in conversation a lot recently, and that we can think about how to evolve this forward. One is the governance issue of cities and how you're tackling all this. And it's been fascinating to me to see over the last 20 years how the governance of cities has evolved. 20 years ago, most cities didn't have a director of sustainability. You had a Department of the Environment, and it looked after air quality, soil, etc. And then you had a director of sustainability, and that director of sustainability then had a cross-cutting mandate. And then maybe 6-7 years ago, you started seeing cities get directors of resilience. And about 3 or 4 years ago, you started seeing cities get directors or chief information officers. I think what's really interesting, I've heard all of you mention science. And it's so exciting to hear that cities are engaging and integrating with the science. What does 1.5 mean? Science-based targets. How do you bottom this out? I think it would be really interesting to see cities start adopting a governance position where there is a director of a chief science officer in the city with a cross-cutting mandate to understand what the science means to its different communities, to its different departments. So I think that's an opportunity to, again, push the envelope forward in terms of governance and engagement on a very critical topic. And also, when we're talking about race to zero, and there's been this COP has had large focus on that. We also just launched the COP, the Race to Resilience, earlier this year as the mirror image of that. But we must not lose the issue of resilience, because while it's so important to mitigate right now, and we're already feeling the impacts of this, we already need to be working and practicing on adaptation. We have to be very careful that in transforming our societies to be decarbonized, that we don't do so in a way that isn't future-proofed. Because if we don't embed adaptation and resilience into the decarbonized infrastructure and policies that we're creating, this infrastructure will become the 21st century stranded assets. just like fossil fuel assets of the last century are weighing us down by being stranded assets. We got to be very, very careful about this. But the last thing I'd say, Jennifer, in terms of opportunities, and this is a tough one, and one that I think the cities and mayors are very familiar with, but how to lean into innovation and how to lean into failure. There's not enough people having an honest conversation that we're doing things at an unprecedented scale and at an unprecedented rate. And by that very definition, it's probably a pretty good bet that we're going to get a lot of it wrong. And that's okay, as long as, I heard metrics also mentioned, as long as we have metrics and processes in place with which to track in real time how we're failing, how we're succeeding, networks like C40 to translate those successes and failures in real time across peer cities and organizations around the world, we can move forward faster, further together. And that's what I think it's all about. And that's what I think is really exciting about the One Planet City Challenge, and kudos to WWF for the 10-year anniversary of that. But also, you keep getting more cities and repeat cities coming back. There's a reason for that, because there's value in that process. There's value in benchmarking your ambitions and your goals against other cities, seeing where you're strong, seeing where you're weak, and where you can improve. But also providing a spotlight, rightfully so, to cities that are doing amazing work. So people around can see and touch and understand what good looks like. So just a couple of quick thoughts, Jennifer, but I'm happy to turn it back over to you, engage some Q&A.
Yeah, no, that's always inspiring to listen to you, Seth. And I like what you said about failure. And I actually came across an organization a few years ago called Fail Forward. And I think that's such a brilliant concept, especially when we're talking about climate change and new challenges and, you know, being able to be experimental and bold and take risks. So thank you so much for that, and thanks for the shout out to our work and all of the wonderful work of the other city networks here, these fantastic city leaders. We have one or two questions online, so I'm going to actually take that first, because then the online audience will leave us, and then if anyone offline wants to jump in and ask these fantastic folks before they have to head out too. Now, I'm going to paraphrase the question that I received here just briefly, but it's about, you know, compromising efforts and collaboration, more or less. So, you know, cities often in a very friendly way have a competition among each other, but the way I understand the question is it's how can cities work together, especially in a metropolitan region, perhaps. I think there's two metropolitan regions here. So how can the different cities work together in order to grow forward? And find that way of collaboration, especially when, you know, some some municipalities might have more resources, some might have less. Every city is trying to, you know, compete for bringing in the jobs and the economic investment. But, you know, if we're going to get there together, we're only going to get there together. So do we have any quick thoughts on that?
Well, it's not easy. During the last 15 years, we have been working to develop a metropolitan system to governance and decision-making process. In our case, the PAC Metro is mandatory in the constitutional level in the state of Jalisco. So all the decisions of our Metropolitan Coordination Board, integrated by the 9 mayors and the governor and the Metropolitan Citizen Council, are mandatory, all the decisions. So in that case, the most complicated thing is how we can be in the same idea, with the same objectives. We worked during the last 3 years with the support of C40 to develop this plan. So it's not affordable for each metropolitan region, because each region has their own systems, their own rules, formal and informal mechanisms. So I don't know if it's possible to replicate the same case, at least in Mexico, just with the metropolitan area of Monterrey, a place where WWF is working now, but we have 74 metropolis in Mexico. So it's not easy, but well, this is an example.
Maybe it's a time to get together and share a meal, and everyone can kind of bring something to the table. Claudio, over to you, and then I saw Seth grab the microphone too, so we'll give you that last inspirational word, unless anyone else, but please.
Yes, sure. Well, in our metropolitan region, I would say that our main challenge is to coordinate. We don't have this city authority. So imagine what means to have 36 different contracts to manage the waste. It's absolutely inefficient, and or to also coordinate the transport system. It's something that is urgent to do. But I would say that the work among cities is very important. First, to share our knowledge. Most of the times in the city management aspects, you don't have to invent or to create anything. You can adequate some other experiences to your own reality, and sometimes it's even more easy to work with international alliances than within the country. In 4 years, I have seen born and finish different alliances in the national level. So I would also say that a big challenge is to build like a systematic and coordinated coalition of cities in the national level. I think that we need help to do that. So, for example, I have a lot of hopes with this alliance for the climate action because we will be working with WWF and universities, and I think that that would be the greatest challenge. But working together, I would say that is a must in these times.
Well, we're very happy. Our motto is together possible. So I think we're kind of experts in collaboration, or at least we try to be. And also we fail sometimes, but that's the whole part of it, right? Learning by doing. Unless, do we head over to Seth or any other final comments? No? Okay, Seth, closing words to you because we got to wrap up, but please.
Well, I'll keep it very brief, though. Maybe I flip that question on its head. I think one of the things that are the most inspirational about cities is how much they collaborate. So coordination, challenging, collaboration. Cities collaborate better than any other form of organized entities that I know of, period. And what's phenomenal is that creates a race to the top. That's a positive race. And cities, I think a lot of people don't understand, a couple of the mayors already mentioned it, managing a city is a big business. At this point in history, it's easier and cheaper, and we have more freedom to move goods, services, and people around the world than anywhere before. People and business can choose which cities to live in and where they want to operate their businesses. And they want connected, coordinated, sustainable, resilient, and safe cities. So this creates a fierce competition for cities to do that, to attract youth, businesses, people, for the pride, for the community. But at the same moment, cities and organizations like C40 are connecting them to each other for collaboration. They want to make their place the best, but they don't want to hold anybody else back from doing the same. And it's unlike anything else I've ever seen. It's very, very exciting.
Agree. Great to flip that question on the head and show that collaboration is already going on, and it needs to, it's like sustainability. It's a journey. So we're never there, but we keep moving forward. And speaking of moving forward, we're now finished with our session. So if you have any quick questions, the speakers are here. I think we might do a quick photo among the speakers, and then thank you all also to our online audience. So.